What if the secret to dominating the booming home improvement industry requires you to, like, never actually pick up a hammer?
Which sounds completely counterintuitive at first.
Right. But think about that for a second. So many corporate professionals find themselves sitting in some, Monday morning meeting, staring at a massive spreadsheet.
Yeah, we've all been there.
And you just realize, like, you are spending your best years building wealth for someone else. You want out. You want to build an asset of your own, something that actually scales.
But starting from scratch is terrifying for most people.
Oh, totally. The failure rates are really intimidating. And if you're looking at the home service sector, which is experiencing just unprecedented demand right now, you might immediately disqualify yourself.
Because you don't know the trades.
Exactly. You don't know the first thing about, like, installing drywall or running B2B sales in a local market. So today, on this deep dive, we are looking at a highly strategic alternative.
A really fascinating one, actually.
We're breaking down a legacy player in the franchise space, Handyman Connection. We're going to stress test their operational model, examine the psychology of the modern franchise buyer, and then dive deep into the actual unit economics of making this work.
And, the timing of this analysis is critical right now. The whole home improvement sector has shifted dramatically over the last few years.
How so? Like, what's driving that?
Well, homeowners are holding onto their properties a lot longer. They're investing heavily in maintenance and upgrades. But capturing that market share, it doesn't really favor the traditional sole proprietor anymore.
The guy in the single truck.
Right. The winners in this space are the ones who treat home services not as a trade, but as a logistical and customer service puzzle. Success is entirely dictated by the operational structure.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that brings us to the core of our analysis today.
Yeah.
I want to look at the day-to-day reality of the person actually buying this business.
The lifestyle of the owner.
Yes. Handyman Connection operates on what's called an executive model. So let's break down the mechanics of that. If I'm leaving a comfortable six-figure corporate job, my number one concern is, what does my Tuesday morning actually look like?
Which is the right question to ask.
And the documentation notes that an owner splits their time equally. So 50% in the office and 50% out in the community.
Yeah. What's fascinating here is that split is the absolute heartbeat of the executive model. In a traditional service business, the owner often falls into what we call the technician's trap.
Which means they're doing the actual work.
Exactly. They are the ones turning the wrench, doing the estimating, and then trying to do the bookkeeping at midnight. It's exhausting.
Sounds like a nightmare, honestly.
It is. But the executive model actively prevents that. Your 50% in the office is dedicated to high-level resource allocation. You're reviewing your profit and loss statements, your P&L, tracking customer acquisition costs, and optimizing the schedules of your teams.
So as an owner, you are the conductor of the orchestra, not the one playing the violin.
That is a perfect analogy. You are running the operating system.
Right. So to be clear, a corporate professional looking at this doesn't need to know how to install drywall. You aren't the gears turning inside the engine. You're the diagnostic system.
You're monitoring the output, ensuring the machine doesn't overheat.
Okay, but what about the other 50% of the time, the part out in the community?
Right, so that time out in the field isn't spent doing manual labor either. It's dedicated to localized B2B marketing and relationship building.
Like networking.
Exactly. You are meeting with local property managers who need a reliable vendor for their 50 rental units. Or you're shaking hands with real estate agents who constantly have clients needing repairs after a home inspection.
Right, creating that B2B pipeline.
Yes. You're establishing the commercial relationships that provide a baseline of recurring revenue.
I see how that appeals to a corporate professional. I mean, a mid-level manager is already used to managing people, optimizing workflows, dealing with client communications.
It's the exact same skill set.
You're essentially taking that existing executive toolkit and just pointing it at a fragmented industry. But there is a glaring question here.
Let's hear it.
If the owner is just the diagnostic system running the business and doing the networking, who is actually doing the work? How do you recruit skilled craftspeople in a labor market that is notoriously tight right now?
That is usually the very first hurdle a prospective buyer visualizes, but it fundamentally misunderstands what skilled craftsmen actually want.
What do they want?
Well, think about a top-tier carpenter or a veteran plumber. They usually hate the business side of the
Oh,
business.
sure, the paperwork and stuff.
Right. They despise spending money on marketing, they hate chasing down unpaid invoices from clients, and they do not want to spend their evenings doing administrative paperwork.
They just want to apply their trade. They want to show up, do excellent work, and get paid reliably.
Exactly that. So, as the franchise owner, you are providing the infrastructure they crave. You offer them a steady, predictable pipeline of vetted jobs, professional marketing, and all the back office support.
You're solving their biggest headache.
Yes, you are solving their biggest pain point, which makes recruiting significantly easier than you might think. You're offering stability in an industry that's known for very stressful feast or famine cycles.
Wow, that entirely shifts the perspective. You aren't just selling home repair to homeowners. You are selling stability to local tradespeople. That dual-sided marketplace is fascinating.
It's brilliant when executed correctly.
But let's look at the consumer side of that marketplace now. Once you've built this team, how are you actually winning the local consumer? Because Handyman Connection has been around since 1991.
Yeah, they're essentially a pioneer of the organized home repair industry.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting. They back up that longevity with a very aggressive customer-facing motto, which is done right, done quick, guaranteed.
And longevity like that in the franchise world is rare. Surviving for over 3 decades means a brand has navigated multiple recessions, housing market crashes, and complete shifts in digital consumer behavior.
They've seen it all.
They really have. A brand born in 1991 has a massive data advantage. They have 30 years of localized metrics on what marketing channels actually convert, how to price services in different economic climates, and how to train owners to scale efficiently.
And they utilize this one call, one connection strategy.
Yeah.
When you look at their service list, it is massive. Carpentry, deck services, drywall, electrical, plumbing, painting, remodeling.
It covers almost everything a homeowner could need.
It does. But I want to pause on one specific category they offer, which is aging in place. Because, we usually think of home improvement as patching a hole in the wall or fixing a fence.
Right, the standard handyman stuff.
Yeah, but aging in place involves retrofitting a home with zero-entry showers, whitened doorways, safety modifications for elderly residents. That is a highly sensitive, emotionally charged service.
It is, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, offering it alongside standard repairs is a massive strategic advantage.
How so? Does it benefit a first-time buyer to have that wide of an umbrella compared to just a niche single-service franchise?
Absolutely. It targets a rapidly expanding demographic, obviously, but more importantly, it speaks to the concept of customer lifetime value. You have to look at the fragmentation of the home service industry.
It's notoriously messy.
Right. Historically, if you meet a drywall patch, you call one guy. If you need a plumbing fix, you try to find another. You end up leaving voicemails for contractors who never call back. It's a stressful, fragmented nightmare for the homeowner.
It's the voicemail black hole. I mean, everyone has experienced the frustration of taking a day off work to wait for a contractor who simply doesn't show up.
Exactly. So by acting as a single trusted hub for everything from a simple fence repair to a complex aging-in-place retrofit, this franchise model solves that. The initial small jobs say, fixing a broken cabinet hinge is essentially an audition.
Okay, an audition for what?
For their trust. Your craftsman shows up on time, in a uniform, does the job perfectly, and you, the corporate owner, follow up to guarantee the work.
You've established the relationship. You proved you aren't a massive risk.
The trust is locked in at that point. So 5 years later, when that same homeowner realizes their aging mother is moving in and they need a $15,000 bathroom retrofit, they are not going to go on the internet and roll the dice with a stranger.
No, they're going to call the company that already proved they respect the home.
Exactly.
Let me make sure I'm connecting the dots on the business side here, though. If that first $200 repair job earns their ultimate trust, your customer acquisition cost for that future $15,000 remodeling job is effectively zero.
That is the operational moat of the business right there. Cross-selling those varied services drastically lowers your blended acquisition costs over a decade.
That's huge.
It really is. It moves the business from a transactional model where you are constantly fighting for new leads every single day to a relational model where your existing customer base becomes an engine of recurring revenue and organic referrals.
Building that kind of localized trust machine sounds phenomenal in theory, but acquiring the blueprint for it can't be cheap.
No, it's a real business investment.
So what does this all mean? It is time to look at the hard numbers. We need to stress test the unit economics of actually getting the doors open.
Let's do it.
The documented total investment range to launch this franchise is between $110,722 and $231,114. And to even be approved, they require a candidate to have a $200,000 net worth and $110,000 in liquid capital.
And those numbers paint a very clear picture of who this opportunity is designed for and what it actually takes to scale it.
I do need to push back on those numbers a bit, though. A liquid capital requirement of $110,000 is a significant amount of cash.
It is.
For someone leaving a corporate job, tying up a massive chunk of their life savings in a new venture is an incredibly stressful proposition. Is that really considered an accessible entry point in the franchise world?
This raises an important question, but yes, it is highly accessible when you benchmark it against the broader franchise landscape.
How so?
If you look at traditional retail or quick-service food franchises, you are often looking at a minimum initial investment of $700,000 to well over $1 million. Oh, wow.
Right. You are signing personal guarantees on massive commercial real estate leases, paying for expensive retail build-outs, and buying perishable inventory. With an executive home service model, your overhead is radically different.
Because there is no retail storefront required. You don't have a drive-through window.
Exactly. You are operating out of a modest office space. Your capital isn't trapped in expensive ovens or dining room furniture. That $110,000 to $231,000 investment is primarily being deployed into localized marketing, technology systems, working capital, and recruiting.
You're investing in growth engines rather than static physical assets.
Precisely.
Even so, liquidating $100,000 in cash isn't easy. How are corporate professionals actually funding that initial injection without draining their personal checking accounts completely?
This is where understanding franchise financing becomes crucial. A significant portion of buyers utilize SBA loans, Small Business Administration loans.
Because Handyman Connection is an established franchise with a 30-year track record, banks are far more willing to lend against it compared to just, an independent startup. The government essentially backs a portion of the loan, which lowers the risk for the lender.
Right, and what about utilizing retirement funds? I've heard whispers about people using their 401ks, but I always thought pulling from a retirement account to buy a business was basically financial suicide.
Because of the penalties.
Yeah, the massive early withdrawal penalties and taxes.
If you do it improperly, it is. But there's a legally established funding mechanism called a ROBS rollovers as business startups.
ROBS, okay.
Yeah. It allows an entrepreneur to roll their existing 401k or IRA funds into a new C corporation that they create to run the franchise. When executed correctly through a financial professional, this maneuver triggers absolutely zero tax penalties and zero early withdrawal fees.
Wait, really? So a mid-career professional who has spent 15 years building a 401k can unlock those funds, use them as the $110,000 liquid capital requirement, and launch the business essentially debt-free from day one.
Yes, it's very common. And starting a business without the heavy anchor of a massive monthly loan payment fundamentally changes your path to profitability.
I bet.
It allows the owner to reinvest early revenue right back into marketing and hiring rather than just servicing debt.
That completely changes the risk calculus. But let's talk about the ongoing fees, though, because this is often where franchise candidates get nervous. The brand charges a 6% royalty fee and a 2% ad royalty fee.
Standard for the industry.
But that is 8% of top-line revenue going back to corporate every month. Why should an owner be comfortable giving up that much margin?
It comes down to the ultimate build versus buy calculation. Let's look at the 6% royalty first. If you start an independent contracting business, you have to source your own CRM software, build your own operational manuals, hire lawyers to draft your customer contracts.
That sounds like a full-time job.
It is. You're constantly researching new industry trends. You are doing the job of a chief operating officer, a chief technology officer, and a legal team.
Which eats up all the time you should be spending on actually growing the business and finding clients.
Exactly. The 6% royalty pays for the ecosystem. It provides the proprietary software, the continuous training modules for your staff, the localized business coaching, and the refined operational playbooks.
So you are effectively outsourcing your corporate infrastructure for a fraction of what it would cost to build it internally.
That's the best way to look at it.
That makes sense for the operational royalty. But what about the 2% ad royalty? Sometimes prospective buyers view mandatory ad funds as a black hole where they send money and just never see a return.
Right, and that perspective usually comes from a misunderstanding of how national brands actually scale. That 2% pools the resources of the entire franchise network.
So it's not paying for your local flyers.
No, it does not pay for your local Google ads. You handle those locally. Instead, it funds the national brand awareness, the high-level website development, the search engine optimization infrastructure, and the really sophisticated lead generation tools.
Oh, I see. So when the local owners out there doing their B2B marketing, shaking hands with property managers, they're backed by an incredibly polished, professional, national marketing presence. It validates their local efforts.
It acts as a massive force multiplier. The property manager looks up the company and sees a trusted, verified, highly professional national entity. It makes the local sale significantly easier.
And speaking of making things easier, I want to highlight one more financial detail from their profile. And it's a detail that speaks volumes about the culture of the brand. They offer a $10,000 discount off the franchise fee, specifically for veterans.
That is a substantial financial incentive, and strategically, it's a brilliant move by the franchisor.
Why is that?
Well, we talked earlier about how the executive model requires a specific toolkit, right? Managing people, optimizing logistics, and tracking operational output. Veterans are uniquely equipped for this.
Yeah, because the military essentially functions as a masterclass in standard operating procedures.
Exactly. Veterans understand how to take a set playbook, train a team to execute that playbook, and adapt to logistical challenges on the ground.
That makes perfect sense.
They possess the exact operational discipline and leadership that this executive model demands. The franchisor knows that a veteran franchisee has a very high probability of scaling successfully, so they incentivize them to join the system.
That is an incredible alignment of skills and opportunity. Well, this entire analysis really frames the franchise journey in a different light. We've covered a lot of dense material on this deep dive today, so let's synthesize the strategic value of the Handyman Connection model.
I think if we break it down to its core pillars, it is about risk mitigation and scalable systems.
First, we look at the operational reality. This is not a model where you are swinging a hammer. It's an executive model. You are the diagnostic system, splitting your time between high-level office management and localized B2B relationship building.
And you're providing the infrastructure that skilled craftspeople desperately want, which solves the recruiting puzzle.
Second, you're leveraging a 30-year operational moat. By acting as the single trusted hub for everything from a drywall patch to a complex aging-in-place retrofit, you solve the consumer's biggest friction point.
Right, you capture massive customer lifetime value and drive down your acquisition costs over time.
And finally, the unit economics present a highly accessible path to ownership. With an initial investment starting around $110,000 in creative funding vehicles like SBA loans and ROBS 401k rollovers, a corporate professional can launch a scalable asset without the crushing overhead of traditional retail buildouts.
Because you're deploying your capital into marketing and people, the things that actually generate revenue. It's a blueprint designed for multi-unit expansion. Because once you establish your internal staff, you can step back from the daily operations and focus on expanding your territory or building a larger portfolio.